All right, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and for today's show, we're going to be talking about that crazy divisional round weekend that just passed us. We're going to be talking about those games in the second and third segments, though. We're going to be talking about we're going to start off with some NBA. All right, we're going to start off with the Cavs. Talk about their problems. Talk about, if this is the beginning of the end for them, all right? We'll talk about that game. Talk about just pretty much that's what we're going to start off with, too, in today's show. Just talk about the Cavs-Warriors game, and then, like I said, just talk about whether or not this is the beginning of the end for them. We'll talk about the whole Clippers and Rockets little type of thing that happened. I don't even know what you could call it. That was just crazy yesterday, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the rest of the NBA games, and like I said, later on, we'll be talking about the AFC Divisional Round. Talk about how the Jags knocked off the Steelers, how the Patriots blew out the Titans. We'll talk about how the Vikings won in a miracle last play, and how the Eagles managed to come into their game with a good game plan and pull it out. So we'll talk about all those, and then for the last segment, we'll be making my NBA picks for tonight and talking about pretty much anything else going on in the world of sports. So let's get right into it. All right, let's talk about the Cavs and Warriors game yesterday, all right? I didn't even realize that these two teams were playing each other until late yesterday, till about an hour before the game started. Golden State hit it into Cleveland, and Golden State beat Cleveland by 10. Golden State won that one 118 to 108. Let's see. Kevin Durant had 32 points, had, I believe it was 5 rebounds, 8 assists, shot 9 of 16, 4 of 6 from the three-point line. Steph Curry had 23 points. He shot 8 of 15, 4 of 8 from the three-point line, had 8 assists in that one too. Klay Thompson, 17 points, shot 7 of 12, 3 of 6 from the three-point line. And Draymond Green had 11 points, 16 rebounds, 9 assists, and he shot 5 of 14. Off the bench, there was really nothing notable. Andre Iguodala had 9 points. He shot 3 of 11 though. And now as for the Cavs, Kevin Love had 17 points, 7 rebounds, shot 5 of 9. Jay Crowder only 7 points. LeBron had 32 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. He shot 12 of 18 in that one. Isaiah Thomas, 19 points, 4 assists. He shot 8 of 21, 1 of 7 from the three-point line. Still hasn't really played well since he came back off of his hip injury. J.R. Smith had 8 points in that one off the bench. Like I said, nothing really notable for the Cavs either. Dwayne Wade had 10 points. Shot 5 of 14, but no one else had more than 6 points off the Cavs bench. So now the Cavs are currently 26-17. I believe they are the 3 seed in the East right now. Let me see if I could pull up how many games back they are, because I know they're a few games back of Toronto as it is. Yeah, so they're 3.5 games back of Toronto and 7.5 games back of Boston. And now there was a report after the game early this morning that Cavs players, obviously they're being anonymous when they're talking to reporters. They were talking to ESPN reporters and telling them that they know what because the Cavs, the last 3 years have gone through this little dramatic type of situation where there's always something wrong and they go on a little bit of a slump, and then they make some type of trade when then it all works out and they end up making the finals, and they've lost 2 of those finals and won 1 of them. All right, so this is basically the same thing that's happening now. But the biggest problem with this one is I don't think there's anything that could fix it this time. All right, you see names like DeAndre Jordan being tossed around as to someone who the Cavs could trade for. And let's just think about it for a second, okay? You're going to get DeAndre Jordan. Chances are you're going to have to give up that Brooklyn Nets pick, which already, I guess you could say now, the Nets been playing well. Let me see if I can pull up the Nets record to see a little. All right, so the 3rd worst team in the East. But they have a better record than, let me see, they're 16-28. They have a better record than 5 teams in the West. And they're about a game back of Utah, jumping them too as far as records go. So, that next pick really isn't something that is looking all too shiny anymore. Okay, they're going to get D'Angelo Russell back soon. That's only going to make them better. Jahlil Okafor, I believe, he's been playing well with the Nets so far. So, that Nets pick, even if the Cavs were to hold on to it, it's not going to be high enough to where you're going to get a guy like DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, or what's the dude from Oklahoma? Man, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Either way, you're going to miss out on a guy like him too. So they're going to be picking around the 7th or 8th range, and I don't think you're going to be able to get a guy, like I said, like the top 5 player with that 8th pick. All right, so like I said, if you trade for a guy like DeAndre Jordan, is that really going to make the Cavs that much better? Because you're probably going to have to give up a guy like Tristan Thompson and that Brooklyn pick. All right, you got DeAndre Jordan, but what does that fix? I guess that gives you better rim protection and allows you to rebound the ball better. But, I mean, as of right now, that doesn't fix your entire defense. Isaiah Thomas does not fix your defense. He makes it worse. Kevin Love does not play defense. LeBron does not guard the best player on the floor anymore. All right, they don't have that one perimeter player who can go out and stop the other team's best player. It just doesn't happen. And, I mean, as far as, like I said, just as far as them trading to get like a guy like DeAndre Jordan, it's not going to fix the problems. Honestly, right now, I do think that this is the beginning of the end for the Cavs. I do think this is the year where they don't make the finals. And you know what? They might not even make the Eastern Conference Finals if we're being real here, okay? Toronto and Boston right now, by far, is the better team, best team in the East. I don't want to say by far. Toronto's right there, but it's clear that Boston is the best team in the East, all right? Toronto's right there at number 2. Cavs really aren't on those two teams' level right now. Those teams are playing good basketball, good team basketball, playing good defense, and they're beating good teams. The Cavs, I think, they've had 7 games, I believe it is, against the top 3 teams in both conferences, and the Cavs are currently 1-6. That one win came against Boston, where they were pretty much shell-shocked from that Gordon Hayward injury, and they still barely managed to beat the Celtics in that one. All right, second game against the Celtics, they got blown out. Last game they played against the Raptors, they were blown out by 33, I think it was. They can't beat the Warriors, it's clear, and I believe they lost to the Rockets too earlier this season. So the Cavs really right now, I hear the argument, okay, don't worry about the Cavs, they still have a LeBron. LeBron's having one of his best seasons ever, and the Cavs still are a 3 seed who are 7.5 games back of the 1 seed, okay? That hasn't been the case the last 3 years, because like I said, every year, mid-season, they go through this little slump. It hasn't been as bad as it is now. There's no really, like the Heat, look at this, the Miami Heat are only a game back of the Cleveland Cavaliers for the 1 seed. All right, obviously, the Cavs have more superstar players, but what does that tell you about them only being a game better than the Miami Heat right now? All right, obviously something's wrong, and like I said, I don't think it's going to get fixed this season. I don't think DeAndre Jordan is the guy who's going to fix all their problems. I just don't see that happening. So, I mean, they really got to figure it out, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think LeBron is going to end up leaving after this season. There's just way too many problems going on right now. I know I talked about it about a month and a half ago, a couple months ago, where, you know what, I thought if LeBron were to leave, it'd either be to Houston or he's just most likely going to stay. And I picked that he'd stay. I didn't, because the Cavs were going on that little winning streak. Remember, they started off 5-7, I think it was, and they won 18 out of their next 19 games. And then after that, I was like, you know what? LeBron's probably going to stay. Cavs are fine. But, I mean, like I said, we're at this point right here, and the Cavs just aren't looking good. They haven't played well at all. The road record is currently 11-12, and they just really haven't been able to put it together. All right, they're scoring about 109 points per game. That's good for – that's second best in the East, but they're giving up 108 points, closer to 109. It's 108.7, and that is good for second worst in the East. All right, the Orlando Magic, the worst team in the East, are giving up more. Okay, they're not a team like the Celtics who are giving up 97, and they're not like a team like the Raptors who are scoring 112 a game, but only giving up 104. All right, so I just don't see it happening for them. I don't think they're going to be able to fix the problems that they got going on. So, I mean, like I said, this is the beginning of the end for the Cavs. I'm calling it now. Players out here becoming anonymous, talking anonymously to reporters saying that they don't think it's going to get fixed. This is not going to end up well for Cleveland, and I honestly think that LeBron's going to end up leaving. And the biggest problem, too, with Cleveland, with LeBron leaving, is that Isaiah Thomas isn't going to stay with the Cavs after this year. I have no doubts about that. Kevin Love isn't a guy who could lead a team on his own. He's more of like a second-tier type of player, a third-tier type player now. And they really have no one else on that team who could lead them. The Cavs might end up being one of the worst teams in the league next season if LeBron leaves. All right, they might be with a top 5 lottery pick next year just because of how bad they're going to be. You're going to be losing LeBron. You're going to be losing Isaiah. Okay, Dwayne Wade isn't what he once was. He's probably going to leave too. And it's not looking good for them right now. But I guess we're going to have to wait and see. And as for the Warriors, I mean, they got to be feeling good about themselves after yesterday's game. Warriors, like, as far as the regular season goes, right now the best team in the league is probably still the Celtics because they are currently 34-10. The Warriors are right there. And I'm picking the Celtics over the Warriors right now because they did beat the Warriors early on in the season. But if we're talking bigger picture, who is the favorite to win the finals again this year? It's the Warriors without a doubt. And I think right now, I mean, I'm not sure how good of a series Boston could give Golden State. They do match up well. They always do give them a hard time whenever they play each other during the regular season. But like I said, I mean, we have no clue. Boston hasn't been in the finals since the 2010 season, I believe. Yeah, the 2010 season. And Toronto really just hasn't been able to get over that second round hump right there, where they always win their first series usually, and then once the second round comes, they just seem to falter. And like I said, the Cavs really, I don't see the Cavs making it to the finals this year. I'm not even sure if I see them making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami is a young team, but they're not ready yet. And the Wizards, even with John Wall coming back, they just haven't played like that team they were last season. So, I mean, right now, it's probably going to end up being Boston versus Golden State. And like I said, Boston has given Golden State a tough time the past few seasons as far as regular season games go, because obviously they haven't been able to play each other in the finals since it's pretty much been a lockdown with the Cavs going every year. But now we're going to see this year, I feel, how those two teams match up in the finals. I think right now we need to start preparing for a Warriors-Celtics finals instead of a Warriors-Cavaliers finals. I know ESPN and all those other big market news media outlets want to push this Cavs-Warriors finals because it's what gets ratings, but it's about time we moved on from it. All right, this is the beginning of the end for the Cavs. They're done. They're not going to do anything this season. All right, this isn't something that could be fixed with just a trade for DeAndre Jordan. I mean, maybe they can make like a blockbuster trade. I guess this is all just hypotheticals too. I've seen DeMarcus Cousins' name get tossed around, but I don't really see him leaving New Orleans this year. And I don't think that the Cavs really have, unless New Orleans just wants to give up Boogie for nothing, but I don't really think the Cavs have too much to give up for a player like Boogie. DeMarcus Cousins, when he's at his best, is the best player in the league. Or not the best player in the league, one of the best centers in the league, excuse me. I got to be careful when I'm saying that. Yeah, he's the best center in the league. Right now, the Pelicans are 22-20 at the 6th seed, probably going to make the playoffs. And if they end up finishing as a 6th seed right now, they'd be facing off with the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's a series where they could come up with steal a couple of games out of there and maybe even push that series to 6 games, maybe even 7 if we're being honest. So, I mean, I really don't see that happening right now. Boogie leaving. Okay, you got DeAndre Jordan. The Clippers are currently the number 7 seed in the West, currently 22-21, playing as well as you can when you lose your best player to a different team in free agency, meaning Chris Paul. And we're actually going to talk about that later on in the show. I was going to talk about the other NBA games, but this Cavs talk was really taking up much of this first segment, so we're actually going to push the rest of the NBA games from yesterday to the last segment. But going back to what I was talking about, like I said, the Clippers are currently the 7th seed. You got DeAndre Jordan, and I don't see. Like I said, even if he does go to the Cavs, I just don't see it meaning anything. I don't see it helping them or anything like that. Again, they'll probably have better rim protection, better rebounder, but I mean, you still need that perimeter player who could go out and guard on the outside, obviously on the wings. And I don't see I don't see them trading for anyone like that. It's not gonna like the Cavs, like that Kyle Korver last year traded for him, and they traded for Channing Frye the year before. I think the year before that, so 3 years back, they traded for Timothy Mozgov and Iman Shumpert. All right, those were all trades that helped. But now I think they're struggling right now. They're panicking. The Cavs are in panic mode. Now they're looking to add a big name, and that's not going to be able to help you compete with the Warriors. All right, picking up DeMarcus Cousins isn't going to help you match up with the Warriors anymore, more than you do now. Everyone needs to realize that in order to play well against the Warriors, you need to build a team like the Warriors, okay? The Warriors play small ball. I think yesterday they sat Zaza Pachulia and, what's his name, JaVale McGee. They play small ball. KD plays the 5 sometimes. Sometimes we'll throw Draymond Green at the 5. You need to have players who can match up physically and with the ability of those players, okay? You see the Celtics with Al Horford. He's not a big center by any means, but he can do well against a guy like Draymond Green, all right? You got a guy like Jason Tatum who's got the length, who can match up with a guy like Kevin Durant, okay? And then you got the Raptors who they have Jonas Valanciunas as their center, but they have other players too. It's not like they have a bunch of true centers on that team. All right, they have a bunch of guys who could stretch fours, guys who could play the 5 if they needed to, guys who could play small ball, like a personnel to play small ball against a team like the Warriors. The Cavs don't have that, and even if they tried, I mean, with the team they have right now, it's just Kevin Love at the 5 just doesn't work out because he can't defend as it is. So, I mean, really with the Cavs, it's like I said, it's the beginning of the end for them. I don't see them making the finals, and I'm not even sure if they're going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. So, we're going to have to wait and see. February 8th is the trade deadline, so we got about about less than a month left for them to make a deal. I'm not sure if they will, and if they do, I mean, I'm not sure how much it's going to help them. And I don't see that whole Boogie Cousins going to the Cavs deal happening. So it's either going to be DeAndre Jordan or a guy like Tyreek Evans, I'm sure. So like I said, we'll wait and see. But next up, we're going to be talking about the AFC Divisional Round games. Third segment, we'll be talking about the NFC Divisional Round games. And then, like I said, for that fourth segment, we'll talk about the rest of the scores from yesterday's Monday's slate of NBA games. And we'll make my picks too. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. And that last segment, we pretty much filled the whole segment just talking about the current Cavaliers' problems, and I talked about how I really don't think that there's anything that they could do to fix it. I mean, trading for a guy like DeAndre Jordan, I guess, yeah, will make you a tiny bit better, but it's not going to fix the true problems you have. They have no real true perimeter defender on that team. Like I said, LeBron James does not guard the best player on the opposing team on the perimeter anymore. I mean, yesterday he was guarding guys like Jordan Bell, and instead of going up against a guy like Kevin Durant. I don't understand why LeBron does that. Like, LeBron is without a doubt probably the best defender on that team. I don't get why he doesn't go up against a guy like Kevin Durant throughout the game and guard him constantly. I mean, I'm not sure if it has to do with scheme or do they want a guy like Jay Crowder on him, but if it's me, I mean, I feel like LeBron James, I mean, as far as strength, size, and all that goes, I mean, you feel like he matches up way better with Kevin Durant than Jay Crowder does, but I don't know. I mean, the NBA is kind of weird. It's all about brands and stuff like that and keeping your brand up, so maybe that's what it has to do, because, I mean, if Kevin Durant were to match up with or if LeBron were to match up with Kevin Durant, I'm sure Kevin Durant's still going to go out and get his, but I don't know. Cavs have a bunch of problems, and I don't see them getting fixed this season, even with whatever trade they make. I don't see Boogie Cousins happening, so let's talk some football. All right, first game we're going to start off with was probably the best out of the AFC Divisional Round. The Jacksonville Jaguars headed into Pittsburgh and won that game 45-42. And for up until probably about 25 seconds left in the first half, I mean, Jacksonville was doing whatever they wanted. They were up 28-7, and like I said, with 25 seconds left, boom, Pittsburgh has a 4th and 11. It's like, this is it right here. If Pittsburgh doesn't get anything here, game's over. Jacksonville's going to win. Sure enough, safety blows his coverage, lets Martavis Bryant get behind him, and boom. I'm drawing a blank. The Steelers get that momentum touchdown right there. It's 28-14, and after that, I mean, I was still kind of, still kind of on the fence about the Steelers coming back. Okay, those 2 touchdowns in the first half, those were just deep balls. I was thinking, you know what, the Steelers really haven't been able to sustain a drive throughout this first half, and you can't really expect to come back on deep touchdowns, play drive after drive. But sure enough, first drive of the second half comes. Le'Veon Bell scores a touchdown. I believe it was a pass-catching touchdown from Ben Roethlisberger. And then the fourth quarter comes, and Pittsburgh's defense let them down in this game, okay? Their defense gave up 17 points. Pittsburgh scored 21 points, okay? If you score 42 points in a game, you should be able to win, and your defense should be able to come up with some stops. All right, and this was like the Blake Bortles, quieting the haters type of game right here. Fourth quarter comes. Blake Bortles went through for 1 touchdown in this game, okay? Completed 14 out of his 26 attempts, had 214 yards and a touchdown. Only threw for 1 touchdown. They put up 45 points. Like I said, he only added 1 touchdown. Did well on the ground, too. Had 5 carries for 35 yards. But the fourth quarter, he was able to make these big-time throws, right? Able to get first downs, able to throw down the field and help his team get down the field for Leonard Fournette to go to score. Leonard Fournette finished the game with 25 carries, 109 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I believe he did have a few not decent receiving numbers. He only had 2 receptions for 10 yards. And Leonard Fournette actually left late in the first half with an ankle injury. And it was it wasn't like Jacksonville was done after that, because he did end up coming back in the third quarter, I believe it was. But, I mean, there was kind of some uncertainty if the Jaguars were going to be able to keep driving down the field, because Leonard Fournette, I mean, he could not be stopped in that game. I'm not sure. I didn't think that Pittsburgh's front seven was that bad, but they just simply couldn't do anything against Leonard Fournette. I thought guys like Stephon Tuitt, TJ Watt would be able to play well, and they just had no answer for this Jacksonville Jaguars rushing attack. TJ Yeldon only had 5 carries in this one. He did have 20 yards, averaged 4 yards per carry. Jesse does math right there. And then he did have a touchdown. He did well, and TJ Yeldon also did well receiving. He was the leading receiver for the Jags. He had 3 receptions for 57 yards. Keenan Cole did have 1 catch in this game for 45 yards, and that was probably the biggest play, one of the biggest plays for the Jaguars in this game. I think, that's what pretty much iced the game right there, because Leonard Fournette after that play runs the ball in for a 3-yard touchdown. Like I said, that put the Jaguars at 45-35, I believe. So after that, game was pretty much over. And one thing that kind of confused me as far as Pittsburgh goes, I mean, they were down, I believe it was, what were they down by? I think it was 38-35 or 38-42. No, 35-42. Yeah, it was 35-42. I had to jog my memory real quick. All right, 35-42. Pittsburgh just scores. There's about a little more than 2 minutes left. Pittsburgh has 2 timeouts left. And instead of kicking the ball off and trying to stop Jacksonville on offense, they go out and they kick the onside kick. The onside kick doesn't even go more than 5 yards, and it hits the Steelers player before it even has a chance to go more than 10 yards. And boom, Jacksonville's able to get a few more yards on their offensive drive, kick the field goal, and then after that, it's pretty much done. So, I mean, Pittsburgh really just kind of some questionable decisions at the end. Defense didn't play well at all and didn't help out the offense. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, he had 37 completions out of 58 attempts, 469 yards, 5 touchdowns, did throw an interception early in the first half. Le'Veon Bell had 16 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown, also brought in 9 receptions for 88 yards and a receiving touchdown. And let's see, Vance McDonald, he was, this game was highly beneficial to him because the Jaguars, towards the end of the second half, in the second half, did well to take away the deep routes, except for Antonio Brown, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But Pittsburgh was forced to throw the ball underneath the line. Vance McDonald was beneficial for that because he had 10 receptions, 112 yards. Martavis Bryant did have 2 receptions for 78 yards and a touchdown. He said that touchdown came at the end of the first half. Juju Smith-Schuster was non-existent in the game, only 3 catches, 5 yards. Did have a garbage time touchdown at the very end of the game, literally scored with 1 second left. And Antonio Brown, the best receiver in the league, no doubt about it. Don't question it. Don't argue it. It's him. He had 7 receptions for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, and it didn't look like he was 100%, but I'm not sure how healthy you could be when you've only had 3 weeks to recover off of a torn calf muscle. So, I mean, he played well, made A.J. Bouye struggle a little bit. I mean, A.J. Bouye on those 2 Antonio Brown touchdown catches had good coverage. I mean, he was right on him. It's just Antonio Brown was just the better player at that moment. And like I said, Antonio Brown is the best player, probably the best player in the league if we're being real here. As far as quarterbacks go, as far as running backs go, I think Antonio Brown is the best player in the league. All right, but like I said, that game finished 45-42, and now the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be heading to New England. We'll talk about that game in a few moments. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, what do they do now in the offseason to get better? All right, there's always talk year after year now, last couple of years I think it is, where the question's asked. I mean, I'm sure we know what's going to happen, but the question gets asked. Ben Roethlisberger, are you going to come back next year? Do you want to play football next year? And he says, yeah. And you know what? The fact that these questions are getting asked now means that Big Ben probably has about 2 more years, probably 3 at the most in this league if he's already getting asked retirement questions. And he entertains the questions too. All right? It's not like it's like, oh, like that's crazy talk or anything like that. I want to play for a while, few more years and stuff like that. I want to play for longer. It's not that. I mean, the guy has probably 3 more years at the most. Okay, so Pittsburgh needs to look for a real backup quarterback that could take over for Big Ben once he leaves. Okay, because Josh Dobbs is not that. The guy from Tennessee, I'll tell you that much. Guy was overrated and at Tennessee, really didn't do much, and he's not going to be the guy that takes over for this Pittsburgh team. I'll tell you that much. Landry Jones is definitely not that guy. So the Steelers need to find that backup quarterback. They need to lock up Le'Veon Bell long-term and extend him. If they franchise him, Le'Veon's already said that he's going to think about not playing this year, and if I'm him, I'm not playing either. All right, he deserves to be the highest paid running back in the league. No one else besides Todd Gurley could do what Le'Veon Bell does, and Todd Gurley doesn't do it nearly as well as Le'Veon Bell does. All right, so they need to extend him, and they need to fix up that defense because that performance on Sunday was garbage. That was terrible. They couldn't stop Blake Bortles. They couldn't stop Leonard Fournette. They couldn't stop anyone on that offense. All right, so they need to fix up that defense, fix up that secondary, go out, get some better linebackers, and fix up that interior defensive line because that was terrible, that performance they put out. All right, but now let's talk about the New England Patriots Tennessee Titans game. And on Friday, when I was making my picks, I was talking about, oh, you know what, Patriots are going to win, but it's going to be closer than people think. Not like within 7 points or anything like that, but it's going to be like a 10-point game it'll finish. All right, it was looking like that after the first quarter, and then once the second quarter comes and the rest of the game comes, it was done. All right, New England blew out Tennessee 35-14, and it was pretty much 35-7 for most of the game until Corey Davis caught a garbage time touchdown with about 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. All right, let me give you the stats for Tennessee first. Marcus Mariota, 22 completions, 37 attempts, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did play all right in this game. Did get sacked 8 times, though. And that's, against this New England defensive line is inexcusable. All right, Derrick Henry had 12 carries, only ran for 28 yards. Didn't do much in that game at all. Eric Decker, 6 receptions, 85 yards. Corey Davis, this was like his coming out game right here. He's going to be a good receiver going forward for the Tennessee Titans, I believe. He had 5 receptions, 63 yards, 2 touchdowns. Delaney Walker, 3 receptions, 49 yards. And Rashard Matthews had 3 catches for 27 yards. Derrick Henry did bring in 3 catches also for 21 yards. All right. As for those New England Patriots, Tom Brady, 53 passing attempts, 35 completions, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns. Was sacked 0 times. Deion Lewis, 15 carries, 62 yards. Did bring in 9 catches for 79 yards, no touchdowns. Brandon Bolden ran the ball 4 times in that game, 27 yards and a touchdown. James White had 4 carries for 11 yards and a touchdown. Let's see, he also had 4 carries, if I didn't say that. He did have 4 catches, though, for 29 yards and a touchdown also right there. And Danny Amendola had 11 receptions for 112 yards. Rob Gronkowski, 6 receptions, 81 yards and a touchdown. And Brandon Cooks was pretty non-existent in that game, only 3 receptions for 32 yards. Let's see on New England's defense. See who brought in some sacks. James Harrison had 3 tackles in that one, no sacks though. Marquise Flowers had a sack. Trey Flowers had a sack. Let's see. Janelle Grissom had 2 sacks. Deatrick Wise had 2 sacks. And I think, Ricky Jean-Francois, 1 sack. Adam Butler, 1 sack. That totaled the 8 ones right there. And like I said, that Tennessee... Oh, yeah. Now with Tennessee losing this game, remember how after the Chiefs game, the Tennessee front office came out, or the owner came out and said, you know what, Mike Mularkey's job is safe, we're going to extend him, all that good stuff. Yeah, we came back, beat the Chiefs. Yeah, Mike Mularkey got fired after this game. Tennessee, I agree with Tennessee firing him. I think it was the right move, but the way they went about it, they pretty much botched this completely, all right? After the Chiefs game, they shouldn't have come out and said that they were going to keep him. They shouldn't have been a prisoner of the moment, and they shouldn't have, like I said, they just shouldn't have put out a statement saying, yeah, he's our guy, because then you get blown out by the Patriots, and we all knew this was going to happen. I'm sure, I knew the Patriots were going to beat them. I didn't think it was going to be by this big, but the majority of reporters, fans, and everyone around thought that, you know what, New England's going to blow them out, and Tennessee's not going to come close in this game. And, it was true, and I just don't understand why you're going to go out and say you're going to keep a guy and then all of a sudden go back on your word just because you got blown up by the Patriots. Like I said, I agree with this move. I think it's the right one. I think they need a new head coaching staff and need a new offensive coordinator to build around Marcus Mariota's strengths, okay? But just the way they went about this was just completely wrong. Now let's get the offseason for them. They need to fix up that offensive line because giving up 8 sacks to a weak defensive line in a playoff game is just inexcusable. All right, you probably need to fix up that secondary too because they didn't play well. And you need to go out and get probably a second receiver to play with Corey Davis because Rashard Matthews could be a solid slot receiver. And Eric Decker, I just don't think has it anymore. He did have, I think it was 8 catches, I believe, in this game. Yeah, or 6 catches for 85 yards, but that's the most he did all season. So they need to figure that out. As for the Patriots, they got the Jags coming up, and that's going to be the toughest game that the Patriots have played all season long, I feel. It's going to be the best defense that they've faced, and it's going to be the best running back, second best running back that they faced all year. Le'Veon Bell being the number one. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this segment. Next up, we're going to be talking about the NFC games. We're going to be talking about that miracle in Minnesota, and we're going to talk about that game in Philly. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. In that last segment, we talked about the AFC Divisional Round games. Jacksonville knocked off Pittsburgh by a score of 45-42. Pittsburgh's defense non-existent in that game. I mean, Jacksonville's defense did give up 42 points, but they did come up with plays, like big plays and big stops when they needed to. I mean, most of that was in the first half, but they still played a whole lot better than Pittsburgh's defense did. And then, as most people expected, except for me, I guess you could say, New England blew out Tennessee 35-14. Again, I thought New England was going to win, but didn't think it was going to be that bad of a game. Mike Mularkey lost his job after that game, so now Tennessee is now looking for a new head coach. And as for the NFC, the Minnesota Vikings, when it looked like it was lost, they won. All right, Minnesota won this game 29-24. Case Keenum had completed 25 out of his 40 attempts, 318 yards, 1 touchdown. Did throw an interception in this one to Marcus Williams, the rookie safety on New Orleans, but poor Marcus Williams. That interception he had did turn around the game, did shift the momentum for New Orleans, but with they threw the ball with about 10 seconds left. Ball's going to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs jumps up. Marcus Williams got there too early. Dives under to avoid the pass interference penalty. All right, Diggs catches it, turns, runs it down the sideline, and scores the game-winning touchdown with no time left. All right. And then now Marcus Williams is going to be remembered for that play. The poor guy. All right, but no. Stephon Diggs had 6 receptions for 137 yards and that one miracle touchdown at the end of the game that helped seal the win for Minnesota. Adam Thielen had 6 receptions for 74 yards. Jarius Wright, 3 receptions for 56 yards. Kyle Rudolph had 5 receptions for 28 yards. As for the rushing numbers, Latavius Murray had 19 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown. Jerick McKinnon had 8 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown. As for New Orleans, Drew Brees, same completions, same attempts as Case Keenum. 25-40, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did throw 2 interceptions. Those were both in the first half, I believe. Was not playing well in the first half at all. All right. Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram were limited once again. Kamara only had 11 carries for 43 yards. Ingram, 10 carries for 25 yards. As far as receiving the ball, Alvin Kamara did play well, had 4 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown. Mark Ingram, only 1 catch for 3 yards. Speaking of receiving, Michael Thomas, big game from him. 7 receptions, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ted Ginn Jr., 8 receptions for 72 yards. All right, let's talk about the game now. First quarter, Minnesota's already up 10-0. Drew Brees threw a pick in the first quarter, I believe it was. Just wasn't playing well at all. Couldn't get it going. All right. Second quarter, Minnesota scores again, 17-0. I'm thinking game's over. All right, this isn't going to be like the Pittsburgh Steelers and Jacksonville Jaguars game where the Pittsburgh Steelers make it a close one and they come back and try and overtake the lead. Okay, Pittsburgh, They did, I guess you could say, come back, but it's pretty much like a race. They were in second place the entire time, so I mean, it really wasn't much of a race, But the Saints did taking the lead in this game, okay? They scored a touchdown in the third quarter, made it 7-0. Minnesota, with the goose egg in the third quarter, did not score, all right? So 17-7. Then the fourth quarter comes. So the Saints score again. Michael Thomas catches his second touchdown of the game in the fourth quarter. Early in the fourth quarter, makes it 17-14. Minnesota still up. Alvin Kamara later in the quarter scores a receiving touchdown from Drew Brees, obviously. Makes it 21-17. Then, I believe, did Minnesota score a touchdown? Let me see. In that fourth quarter, let me see if I can pull it up right here. I don't believe, they kicked a bunch of field goals in that quarter. All right, let me see the summary right here. All right, let me give you a recap of the rundown of the fourth quarter, okay? All right, so Michael Thomas scores his 3-yard touchdown pass, like I said. Kai Forbath kicks a 49-yard field goal, makes it 20-14 Minnesota. Kamara catches his 14-yard touchdown pass, makes it 21-20. New Orleans is up. All right, Forbath comes back in the fourth quarter, kicks a 53-yard field goal, which makes it 23-21. That's with a minute 29 left. I believe Saints had one timeout left or two. Either way, it's still too much time for Drew Brees. He takes him down the field. 25 seconds left. Will Lutz kicks a 43-yard field goal, which makes it 24-23. 25 seconds left. Minnesota's only got one timeout, and it's not looking good. Game's pretty much looking over unless a miracle happens. And sure enough, a miracle happened. All right. Stephon Diggs caught a 61-yard touchdown pass from Case Keenum. Like I said, Stephon Diggs goes up to catch the ball. Marcus Williams gets there too early, dives under Diggs in order to help, I guess you could say, help bother him as far as making the catch, kind of throw him off. It doesn't. Like I said, he got there too early, doesn't hit Diggs. Diggs catches it, turns his body, doesn't touch the sideline, and goes all the way down the field for a touchdown. And boom, game's over. Marcus Williams might be the most hated man in all of New Orleans now. All right. This game was, it looked like it was another Minnesota heartbreak, okay? It looked like it was another Minnesota heartbreak, and it looked like New Orleans was going to head down to Philly and probably end up playing in the Super Bowl. Because I feel if New Orleans would have ended up winning this game, probably would have ended up beating Philly and probably would have ended up facing New England or Jacksonville in the Super Bowl. All right, but now that's not going to happen. Now we got a game on Sunday between the Vikings and the Eagles. And I'm not sure who I'm going with yet. Right now I'm leaning towards Minnesota, but Philly's coaching staff really impressed me on Saturday. All right. And you know what? We'll talk about their coaching staff in a moment. But let's talk about the Vikings. They had a good game plan against the Saints. I said they needed to limit Kamara and Ingram. They did that. That's why they were up big in the first half. That secondary is playing well. And then their safety, I think it was Andrew Sendejo, comes out in the second half with an injury, the concussion, I believe it was. And Drew Brees was able to throw the ball all over the place in the second half. That's what helped bring him back. But, like I said, that miracle touchdown happens and the game's over. So now, what's next for New Orleans in the offseason? Drew Brees' contract is up. I'm sure they're going to extend it for 2 years, but the same way like Pittsburgh. Go out, get a quarterback to take over for him eventually. All right? Just like Roethlisberger, he's got 3 more years at the most. I think Brees has probably 2 years at the most. All right? You got a good team. You got Alvin Kamara, young running back. You got Mark Ingram, who I believe is locked up to a long-term contract. You got Michael Thomas, who just finished up his second year, already a top 3 receiver in the league. At least that's my opinion. Your defense is young, developing, and playing well. Probably need to fix up that offensive line a little bit more. And maybe look for a tight end and a true second number 2 receiver. Ted Ginn is a solid thing, is okay, but I think you could do better. All right, so that's what they need to do. Now, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. And all these games were actually pretty good games. The Eagles and Falcons game really wasn't a good game up until the fourth quarter, but nonetheless, it finished as a good game. All right, Jacksonville versus Pittsburgh was a good game. Minnesota versus New Orleans was probably it did have the biggest moment, but I think that Jacksonville and Pittsburgh was the best game of the weekend just because it was just back and forth shootout. But like I said, the Minnesota game did have the best moment in the playoffs, probably one of the best moments in playoff history. Okay, but like I said, Philly, Atlanta, that was a fun game in the fourth quarter. Let's go. Let's talk stats. All right, so Philly won this one 15-10. Matt Ryan threw 36 times, had 22 completions, 210 yards, 1 touchdown. Tevin Coleman had 10 carries, 79 yards. Devontae Freeman also had 10 carries, only 7 yards. Julio Jones had 9 receptions for 101 yards. Mohamed Sanu, 3 catches for 50 yards. Devontae Freeman did have 5 receptions for 26 yards and a touchdown. As for those Philadelphia Eagles, Nick Foles, 23 completions out of 30 attempts, 246 yards. J.J., 15 carries, 54 yards. LeGarrette Blount, 9 carries, 19 yards, and a touchdown. Alshon Jeffrey had 4 receptions for 61 yards. J.J. did have 3 receptions for 44 yards. Torrey Smith, 3 catches, 39 yards. Zach Ertz, 3 catches, 32 yards. And Corey Clement had 5 catches for 31 yards. Corey Clement is a guy who doesn't get talked about much because he's still got J.J. and LeGarrette Blount ahead of him in the depth chart, but that guy, he does well. I've seen a couple of Eagles games, and I've seen him play, and he's a quick little shifty type of running back, so he's pretty good running back on that team, but doesn't get much recognition because he's the third stringer. All right, now let's talk about the game. Let's talk about why I said that Philly probably has the best coaching staff in the league and why they impressed me this weekend, okay? Instead of forcing Nick Foles to really use his arm a lot, throw down the field, you know what they did? They had him throwing underneath routes, those tiny, short, less than 10-yard type of routes to get him going. Had him throwing screens to J.J. and had J.J. running the ball a bunch early on in the game. You know why they did that? They did that to get Nick Foles comfortable. All right, Nick Foles is out here completing a bunch of passes. He's going to feel like he's in the zone right now. He's going to feel like he's playing well. He's going to feel like he's on it. And sure enough, he did. I mean, he only had 7 incompletions in that game, threw for 246 yards. And like I said, if you remember on Friday, the podcast, I was talking about why I picked Atlanta. I said I picked Atlanta because I had no clue how Nick Foles was going to play. All right, if you would have just told me that he had 246 yards, like disregard whether he was going to throw for any touchdowns or anything like that, because obviously he didn't, but if you told me Nick Foles was going to throw for complete 23 out of his 30 passes and throw for 246 yards, then I would have picked the Eagles. Okay, like I said, it all came down to I wasn't sure how Nick Foles was going to play, whether he was going to play well or whether he was going to play bad or whether he was going to be just average. All right, if I would have knew he was going to do this, I would have picked Philly the entire way. And mind you, Nick Foles didn't throw for a touchdown at all in this game, okay? But he did just enough to keep Philly in the game, and that defense played well the entire game, okay? And this game came down to the last drive of the game. All right, Atlanta's driving down. They have a big 4th down play. Julio Jones comes down with the catch. They continue to drive. Then they reach the 9-yard line. It's 1st and goal, and everyone knows this is it right here. This is the game. All right, not much time left. I believe there's like a minute or less left in the game. And first play comes. They run a pass play to Julio Jones. It's incomplete. Second play, 2nd down comes, and I don't get why, but they tried running a shovel pass on that 2nd down play. Incomplete, just blew up instantly. As soon as Matt Ryan dropped back, I mean, you knew, like, as soon as he shoveled the pass, you knew it was a broken play. All right, so it doesn't work out there. 3rd down comes, they run the ball with Tevin Coleman, I believe it was, get down to the 3-yard line. 4th down comes. What do? You open up the field or you run the ball. All right, Steve Sarkisian disagrees. He runs a play-action bootleg with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan runs to the right side of the field. What does that do? That cuts off the entire left side of the field. And you know what? I mean, I'm sure Philly was ready for something like this because Atlanta had their fullback, Derek Coleman, I believe his name is, lined up on the outside of the left outside receiver spot. Obviously, if I'm Philly, I'm knowing, they're not throwing it to their fullback, so obviously they're going to run something to the right side. Sure enough, that's what Atlanta did. Julio Jones tries to run a little corner out route in the end zone. He slips, falls, gets back up. Matt Ryan has to buy time. He does. He pump fakes once, throws it up. Jalen Mills is covering Julio. Julio gets back up. Julio jumps. Jalen Mills jumps also. His body turned to Matt Ryan. Has his hand in Julio's face. Not like in, but in front of it. And the ball goes through Julio's hands. Boom. Game over. Philly wins. All right. Just questionable play calling all around on that 1st and goal drive right there. All right, you had 4 downs to try and get in the end zone, and you only had one play that really helped you get near there. All right, which was the 3rd down play. Just don't get it why. I didn't think that the Falcons should bring back Steve Sarkisian after this year, but they already came out and said that they are. So Steve Sarkisian is going to be back. I don't understand why, because this offense just played terrible all year. They were extremely underwhelming. Should have been a whole lot better than what they were. You got a guy like Julio Jones, a solid number 2 receiver in Mohamed Sanu. You got 2 dynamic backs in Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman, and then you got a quarterback who won MVP last year. All right, and this team struggled to put up more than 20 points a game this season. Like I said, against this Philly defense, not trying to knock Philly's defense, but Atlanta only put up 5 in this game. All right, should have been a whole lot. They only put up 10 in this game, I should say. Excuse me. All right, they're better than a 10-point offense. But nonetheless, they lost. Philly's now going to be at home next week against Minnesota, and it's going to be an interesting game to see. But that's going to wrap it up for this segment. We're going to talk more about the championship games going forward as the week progresses, but we're not going to say too much about it now since it's only Tuesday. So for the next segment, we're going to be talking about the NBA scores from yesterday, and we're going to make my picks after that for the games going on tonight, and we'll talk about anything else going on in the world of sports. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. In that last segment, we talked about that miracle of Minnesota. We talked about what the Saints need to do in the offseason. And we talked about the Eagles game and how Steve Sarkisian just, I don't know. I still can't believe those plays he called on after that first, when they were at first and goal at the 9. But Atlanta's bringing him back, so get excited, Atlanta. You got another year of him. But now we're going to talk some basketball from yesterday. The Cavs obviously took up most of my first segment, so now we're going to talk about the rest of the teams that played, and we're going to make my picks for tonight's games. And, by the way, I picked every game right on Friday when I made my picks for that podcast. I picked every single game right. And you know what? I've done that twice. All right, I've done it twice, but I can't talk about it really because it's already Tuesday, and I mean, it's already done and over. There's already been 3 league days that have gone by. So just saying, Friday, I got all my picks right. Chances are I'm going to do it again today. All right, we're going to go on a nice little hot streak. But let's talk about the games from Monday. Let's talk about the Charlotte Hornets. They beat the Detroit Pistons 118-107. Kemba Walker had 20 points, 9 assists. He shot 9 of 18. Dwight Howard had 21 points. He shot 9 of 12. Also had 12 rebounds. You had Marvin Williams with 21 points, 5 rebounds, shot 7 of 8. Nicholas Batum had 14 points, 8 rebounds. As for Detroit, Tobias Harris had 20 points, 6 rebounds, shot 7 of 13. Reggie Bullock had 20 points, 4 rebounds, shot 8 of 13. Andre Drummond, bad shooting night from him, only 3 points, 10 rebounds, shot 1 of 7. Ish Smith had 19 points, 10 assists, shot 8 of 14. And Avery Bradley didn't have that good of a shooting night either. He shot 6 of 19, bringing in 15 points. Detroit is the 8th seed team at the best, and that's pretty much all you could say about them. They started off hot beginning of the season, but they're back to normal. Currently 22-20. Charlotte's currently 17-25. Still got to figure out what to do with Kemba Walker. Next game, we had the Toronto Raptors face off with the Philadelphia 76ers in Philly. Philly won that one 117-111. For Toronto, you had Serge Ibaka with 10 points, only shot 5 of 13. Jonas Valanciunas had 8 points, 5 rebounds, only played 14 minutes in that one. Kyle Lowry played 37 minutes in this one, only had 13 points, shot 3 of 16, had 7 rebounds. DeMar DeRozan shot 8 of 18, 24 points, 5 assists. As for those Sixers, Dario Saric, bad shooting night, 11 points, 3 of 10 shooting, 7 rebounds. Robert Covington, bad shooting night, 11 points, 3 of 10 shooting, 8 rebounds. Him and Sarge had the exact same shooting numbers. 3 of 10 from the field, 1 of 5 from the three-point line. Almost Robert Covington did 1 rebound better. Joel Embiid, big game. 34 points, 11 rebounds, shot 11 of 20. Ben Simmons, 12 points, shot 5 of 10. J.J. Redick, 15 points, 5 rebounds, shot 5 of 10. I almost wanted to call him Josh Redick, but that guy plays baseball. All right. So right now, not a good loss for Toronto. Still the second best team in the East. Philly still trying to figure out a way to make it into the 8th seed. But if I'm Philly, Philly's in a weird situation. You have your 2 cornerstone pieces in Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. But Markelle Fultz, what do you do with him? That's the biggest mystery right now. All right, because remember in the beginning of the year, everyone was talking about the way he was shooting the ball. Now he's got to get his shoulder healed up. All right, well, it's been a while. And there's been highlights of Philly practices, and you can see Markelle Fultz in the background shooting. He's still shooting the same. All right, I don't think this is because of his shoulder injury. I think he's shooting differently because Philly told him to. And I don't understand why they do something like that, because he was probably the best scorer in all of college basketball last season. As far as driving in, mid-range, and three-point. The best overall scorer in college basketball last season. But I don't know what's going on with him, so Philly really needs to figure it out, or else they're going to just ruin him, I feel. Now we got the Milwaukee Bucks. They headed into Washington. Milwaukee won that one, 104-95. Giannis Antetokounmpo had 27 points, 20 rebounds, shot 9 of 23. Chris Middleton, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 9 of 16. Eric Bledsoe, good game from him, 23 points, 4 rebounds. He had 3 assists, shot 8 of 15. And Malcolm Brogdon brought in 16 points, started in that one. As for those Wizards, John Wall, 27 points, 9 assists. He shot 7 of 22. Bradley Beal, 19 points, shot 8 of 17. Otto Porter, 8 points, 6 rebounds, shot 3 of 8. Really has not looked good for the last, month or so. Washington, they've had John Wall back for a few weeks, and they just haven't been able to put it together, get back to the top of the East. Right now, it's just Toronto, Boston as the top 2 teams. Cleveland's trying to figure out whatever it is that they got going on. And then after that, you got a team like Miami, you got Washington, but, Washington just hasn't looked good. As for the next game, we have the San Antonio Spurs headed into Atlanta. Atlanta surprisingly won that one 102-99. No Kawhi Leonard in this one. LaMarcus Aldridge had 25 points, 11 rebounds, shot 11 of 21. Kyle Anderson had 13 points, 6 rebounds. Danny Green, 11 points. Patty Mills came off the bench, had 13 points, and that one shot 4 of 10. As for those Hawks, Ilyasova brought in 20 points, started in that one, 5 rebounds, shot 9 of 15. Dennis Schroeder, 26 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, he shot 10 of 20. And Kent Bazemore only had 10 points, and that one he shot 4 of 12. As for those New York Knicks, they faced off with the Brooklyn Nets. New York won that one 119-104. Kristaps Porzingis had 26 points, 9 rebounds. He shot 8 of 14. Courtney Lee, 10 points. Off the bench, you had Michael Beasley with 23 points, shot 10 of 18, 10 rebounds. Michael Beasley might be in the running for 6th man of the year since Lou Williams is starting. Look at that. Just go ahead and check it out. I know it sounds crazy, but he might be. All right, as for the Nets, DeMar Carroll had 22 points, 8 rebounds, shot 6 of 13. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson had 16 points, 6 rebounds, shot 5 of 9. Off the bench, you had Quincy Acey with 13 points, 4 rebounds. He shot 3 of 9. And you had Chris LeVert with 20 points, 7 rebounds. He shot 8 of 20. Once again, Brooklyn lost that one, 119-104. Those Miami Heat been playing well, but came up with a bad loss against Chicago in Chicago. Chicago won that one, 119-111. James Johnson had 8 points, shot 3 of 6. Hassan Whiteside only played 20 minutes in this one, had 9 points, 8 rebounds. I think Miami really needs to trade him. He's not really doing too much this season. Goran Dragic had 22 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, shot 7 of 17. Didn't hit a 3 in that game. Off the bench, you had Kelly Olynyk with 21 points, 8 rebounds, shot 9 of 16. Took up most of Whiteside's minutes. He played 28 of them. And then you had Wayne Ellington with 20 points, 5 rebounds. He shot 6 of 13 and 5 of 11 from the three-point line. As for the Bulls, you had Lauri Markkanen with 17 points, 9 rebounds, shot 6 of 13. Zach LaVine finally back, had 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 7 of 12. I think he's been back since Saturday also. Chris Dunn had 6 points, 10 assists, shot 3 of 11. And Justin Holiday had 25 points, 4 rebounds, 8 of 15 shooting, 7 of 11 from the three-point line. As for those Lakers, no Ingram, no ball, so a loss in this one. Memphis beat them 123-114. Julius Randle had 9 points, 8 rebounds, shot 2 of 7. Brook Lopez, only 5 points in this one. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope did have 27 points, had 7 rebounds also, shot 8 of 16, 6 of 10 from the three-point line. Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball's replacement, had 16 points, 3 rebounds, only 1 assist, shot 5 of 10. Kyle Kuzma off the bench, 18 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 6 of 16 from the field, 4 of 8 from the three-point line. And Larry Nance off the bench, 15 points, 11 rebounds, shot 6 of 9. You can tell without Lonzo Ball, this team is pretty lost. All right, he makes everyone around him better. Can't shoot the ball, but like I said, makes everyone around him better. And without Brandon Ingram, this team lacks scoring, I feel. As for Memphis, though, you had Marc Gasol with 17 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 6 of 14. Dylan Brooks, 19 points, 4 rebounds. Tyreek Evans, 15 points, 9 rebounds. And Andrew Harrison had 8 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. Next game up, we had the Sacramento Kings. They headed into Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City won that one, 95-88. For the Kings, you had Scala BCA with only 7 points, 7 rebounds, shot 3 of 10. Willie Cauley-Stein, 15 points, 7 rebounds, shot 6 of 13. De'Aaron Fox played 27 minutes in this one, had 12 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, shot 4 of 9. Bogdan Bogdanovic, only 13 points, shot 4 of 13, not a good game from him. Justin Jackson finally got some minutes in this one, 3 points, only shot 1 of 5 from the field, 1 of 4 from the three-point line. And you had Buddy Hield off the bench with 16 points, 5 rebounds, shot 6 of 15, 0 of 5 from the three-point line. As for the Thunder, you had Carmelo Anthony with 20 points, 9 rebounds, shot 7 of 19. Paul George shot 7 of 17 with 18 points. You had Steven Adams with 13 points, 13 rebounds, and Russell Westbrook had 19 points and 16 rebounds, 9 assists, 10 turnovers, triple-double. For the Kings, it's looking like that Dave Yeager is going to be playing the younger guys going forward. So if you're a Kings fan, be prepared for the losses, but look out for your young players to develop, because if not, this team's in trouble, but we're going to have to wait and see how it all ends up. Talked about the Cavs and Warriors game in the first segment. Let's talk about Pacers and the Jazz. Pacers headed into Utah, and the Pacers won that one 109-94. Thaddeus Young had 17 points, 4 rebounds, shot 7 of 10. Bojan with a J, had 10 points, 4 rebounds, shot 3 of 7. Domantas Sabonis had 15 points, 8 rebounds. Victor Oladipo had 28 points, 6 rebounds, 9 of 16 shooting. As for the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, 23 points, shot 8 of 16. Jonas Jerebko had 8 points, 5 rebounds in that one. And Derek Favors had 16 points, 7 rebounds, shot 8 of 12. As for the craziest game of the night and probably the craziest post-game story, we had the Houston Rockets facing off with the LA Clippers. Clippers won that one 113-102. Ryan Anderson only had 12 points in this one. Chris Paul had 19 points, 8 of 17 shooting. Not a good night for him against his old team. Did have 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Clint Capella had 14 points, 7 rebounds. Eric Gordon had 19 points, shot 7 of 21. As for those Clippers, Blake Griffin, 29 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, shot 11 of 22. Lou Williams, he had 31 points, 9 assists. He shot 12 and 19. No DeAndre Jordan in this one. All right. So things got chippy during this game. Blake Griffin was getting into it with Mike D'Antoni. He also got into it with Chris Paul. Trevor Ariza was bumping him a bit. And then after the game, you see Austin Rivers saying some words to Trevor Ariza and some of the Rockets players. All right. So obviously the game was a little chippy, kind of dirty, After the game, when teams go to their respective locker rooms, like this was probably the craziest post-game story of the year so far in the NBA. So it was reported by Adrian Wojnarowski, the reporter from ESPN, that the Rockets sent Clint Capella to the front door of the Clippers locker room, but turns out Chris Paul, Gerald Green, and Trevor Ariza took like a back way to a back door, I guess, in the Clippers locker room. So like they sent Clint Capella as like a diversion, and you see Chris Paul, Trevor Ariza, and Gerald Green at the back door coming in, and there was this big whole like argument, scuffle type of thing. I mean, they never got physical or anything like that, but I guess LAPD had to go in there and stuff like that. It was just a weird whole situation. So you know what that made me think? Obviously, there's bad blood between these two teams, and now we got ourselves a little mini rivalry. I need the Rockets versus the Clippers in the first round, and you know what? Right now the Rockets are the number 2 seed. The Clippers are the number 7 seed. I need it to stay this way so we can see these teams play each other in the playoffs, because this would be great for ratings, and it'd be a fun series, because the Clippers could beat the Rockets in a couple of games and probably take it to 6 games, but we're going to have to wait and see. So now, let's make our picks for tonight's games. We got the Minnesota Timberwolves facing off with the Orlando Magic. That's an easy one right there. I got the Timberwolves. Magic have the worst defense in the East. Then you got the New Orleans Pelicans heading into Boston facing off with the Celtics. This is going to be a tough one for the Celtics. They really haven't been able to deal with the last few years with teams with big men. All right, but I'm going to go with the Celtics in this one. Brad Stevens usually does well to drop a good game plan. Then we got the Dallas Mavericks facing off with the Denver Nuggets. I got Denver in this one. They are currently the better team and playing at home. They're currently 5-15 at home, and the Mavericks are currently 6-14 on the road. All right, then we got the Phoenix Suns facing off with the Portland Trail Blazers. I think I'm going to end up picking the favorites in each game. Portland's only 10-10 at home. The Suns are 8-12 on the road. I'm going to go with the Suns in this one. I'm going to make that my upset pick. So I got the Suns. So to recap, I got the Timberwolves beating the Magic, the Celtics beating the Pelicans, the Nuggets beating the Mavericks, and the Suns beating the Trailblazers. That's actually going to wrap it up for today's show. First up, we talked about the Cavs' problems, talked about how I think this is the beginning of the end for them. Then we talked about the AFC divisional rounds in the divisional round in the second segment, talked about the NFC divisional round in the third segment, and then the segment's been pretty much just all NBA. All right, so this was actually a fun show, but like I said, that's going to wrap it up. This was the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Tapia. We'll be back tomorrow as always, so stay tuned, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.